What is a hierarchy of human worth and how do you avoid them? Well, I'll let you know. Uh, my name is Carla McLaren, and I want to welcome you to episode 13 of season 2 of the Off Ramp Project. The Off Ramp Project is me figuring out my next book, which is going to be called Off Ramp. And it's about how do you get out of unhealthy mindsets, unhealthy relationships, unhealthy ways of doing things, unhealthy groups, unhealthy ways of being, unhealthy political parties, unhealthy anything. First, you can just leave. We've all done that. But if you leave without awareness, then you may just enter the next one without really knowing that you did. I study cults, among other things. And one of the things that can happen if you get out of a cult, which is yay, you, it's wonderful. If you don't understand the mechanisms that underlie all cults, which my colleague Janja Lalich says all cults are abusive relationships. If you don't understand the mechanisms underneath abusive relationships and cultic groups, you may just do what's called cult hopping, right? You just hop from cult to cult. I hopped from a cult to a very abusive first marriage, and it was cultic, that marriage. Janja helped me to see that. And then I think I hopped to another kind of a cultic situation, and I was able to say, okay, this is not good and I'm getting out. But I didn't have the knowledge I needed to get very hip to what it was to have an unhealthy social group, an unhealthy relationship, an unhealthy ideology, an unhealthy set of rules and behaviors, an unhealthy way of doing healthcare, a way of eating, a way of exercising. I didn't have the knowledge. And so part of this off-ramp project is to go piece by piece and talk about what you will see in an unhealthy anything. And we talked in season 1 from episodes, I think 3 to 6, about the 4 aspects of cultic control. And one of the big things that I saw in all of these aspects is what I call a hierarchy of human worth. And what that means is a grading of people from the best to the worst. And you can do it in any number of ways. You can do it with, let's say, whatever the weight, whatever body weight is fashionable at the moment. You would say, this is the fashionable body weight, this is the fashionable body weight, and then these are all the people who are failures, right? They're either above or below the fashionable body weight. So that would be a hierarchy of human worth. We would tend to look down on those people who had the higher or lower weight than what we've all agreed is the right weight. You can have a hierarchy of race. And here in the United States, starting as we did as slave owners, we have a hierarchy that almost always puts Black bodies toward the bottom and white bodies toward the top. Now, there's no intrinsic difference between them except for the amount of melanin that's in their skin or where their ancestors tromped around in whatever field they found themselves in, right? But there's no truth to racial hierarchy. It has no value. But in the social world, it's incredibly important because if you agree with it, then you are going to be seeing Black bodies and brown bodies and Asian bodies as somehow less worthy than white bodies. And this causes so much human suffering that is entirely unnecessary. And it is a belief that is in and of itself abuse, yes? We also have hierarchies of gender. We have the patriarchy, which is all males on top, all females below. You can have a matriarchy, which is all females on top, all males below. Either way, it's terrible. You can have a hierarchy of religiosity. Here in the United States, there's a lot of, what do they call it? Christofascism, right? That Christianity is the way that you should be, and other religions are the worst. Also, if you have no religion, atheism, one of the reasons that we hated communism so much was that communism tends to also be atheist. And so atheists and communists were kind of put together as things or people or ideas at the bottom of a hierarchy of human worth, with Christianity and extreme religiosity at the top. So when you have a hierarchy of human worth, what happens is you create a false sense of a superiority in the people who just happen to be born at the top of whatever. And you have a false and enforced sense of inferiority at the bottom. And this does a lot of terrible things. Hierarchies in and of themselves are fine. Hierarchy just means to grade something. So you could have a hierarchy of, and I talked about this before, olive oil. You can have virgin or extra virgin or cold pressed or the bad stuff that you feed to the animals. Why would you feed it to the animals? But it's important to know where things are. Maple syrup has a hierarchy of purity. You can have a hierarchy of who can run the fastest. And that's what, the Olympics and other races are about, is finding who can run the fastest. That person is at the top of the hierarchy. Now, that usually means that person is going to get more money. They're going to get the Wheaties sponsorship and the Nike sponsorship. And the people who are further down, even though they may be incredible runners because they even got into the contest, they have less viewed value. They don't have less value as beings, but they have less viewed value within that hierarchy of running worth or speed worth or whatever it is. Hierarchies of human worth generally involve being born in the right one. Let me think. You can achieve religiosity in your life, but you can't achieve whiteness. You can achieve maleness. You can achieve maleness through sex change, but notice how much trans people are mistrusted or even hated, which is a terrible thing in and of itself. But if you understand the hierarchy of human worth, those people are going to be seen as cheaters, right? It's like there's all this mythology about maleness, that maleness is this essence that all men carry. And if you've met more than 5 men in your entire life, you'll know that there is no essence, right? That males are individuals. They are as masculine as they are feminine in their own way, if we can even talk about those old concepts. But there's not just like a masculinity that has no femininity in it, or a maleness that has no femaleness in it. Everybody is individual, but in a hierarchy of human worth like a patriarchy, males are expected to be a certain thing, and it's abusive to them as individuals. It's abusive to females. We know that, right? But it's so abusive to males. Any hierarchy of human worth is going to hurt you. It's going to be abusive. And I'm just surprised that we love them so much. In this time of authoritarian rule and the slide toward nationalism and trouble here in the United States and in the UK and Europe and other countries, what we're seeing is the rise of many hierarchies of human worth, which are at their base abusive and untrue. They're not real, they're fake. And so they create a kind of a groundswell of fake power that ends up kind of exploding on itself. So here in the United States, we have white power, we have white supremacy. We have the power of wealth. So we have wealthy people looking like they're worth more than people who haven't amassed a bunch of money. We have the patriarchy is massive here right now. Hello, patriarchy. So we have maleness at the top. And we also have religiosity now as well. There's a lot of really kind of extremist religiosity in the American political sphere right now and in the American public. So that and it's Christian religiosity. Let's just make it really clear. It's a very American form of Christian religiosity, which is at the top of a hierarchy of human worth. And someone like me, an agnostic, which means I'm not an atheist, but people would call me an atheistic agnostic if they wanted to be very specific. And I would be like, yeah, I don't think so. But an agnostic, agnosis, gnosis means knowledge, and a means without, asexual, without sexuality, agnostic, without certain knowledge. So what my agnosticism is about is I don't think humans are smart enough to make a decision in either direction, whether there is a God or there isn't. I think both decisions are premature. Have you looked at humans recently? I don't think they can make this decision on their own, right? So, but me standing on the outside of this hyper religiosity, right? I'm going to be at the bottom of that hierarchy of human worth. With wealth, I'm somewhere near the bottom. I come from a working class background. I got myself some education, and I married well. Okay, so I'm not at the super bottom, but I'm nowhere near the top. In the patriarchy, I am at the bottom. In wealth, I'm kind of there. In religiosity, I'm at the bottom. Probably some people would like to kick me off the entire platform of it because I'm one of the unwashed. In white supremacy, I'm at the top. Yay, me, except I hate it, right? And my work in a white body is to make sure that I become what I call a privilege trader. If I was born into this body and I sucked up all the privilege of just being pale, then it's my job, I feel, to do as much as I can to lift up people of color and to make sure that I can use my whiteness as a protective force. For instance, going up and arguing with the police when they've got one of my friends of color in handcuffs. I work with the unsheltered community here in Sonoma County, and I will often go up with my white soccer grandma looking self and challenge the police because I can do it. Yeah, I can do it. And I'm not going to get handcuffed and I'm not going to get pushed around. That for me is what I'm doing with my whiteness. You don't have to think of your whiteness as oh, I hate being white. Being white is so terrible. I'm going to say, if someone gives me power, have they met me? I'm going to use it for social good, right? I'm going to use it to become a blessing in this world. I'm not carrying on white supremacy. Yeah. You have a choice in a hierarchy of human worth. At the bottom of the hierarchy of patriarchy, right? I'm at the bottom of it. Couldn't be lower. There's only two places to be. What I do is I gather males who have been damaged by the patriarchy. I gather females who don't want to play the lady game, right? I have this whole group of friends who have been damaged by the patriarchy, but we've also been emboldened by it. Yeah. When I say not all men, I mean not all men because I've got the good ones here. Like I married them and I befriend them and I find men who don't want to play the game, right? We are in a rigid, abusive patriarchy and we're individuals. And part of the Off Ramp Project is reminding you that no matter what kind of trouble is created for you, there's a way out, even if you can't get out. When I was in my abusive first marriage, when I was in my cult, and I didn't see a way out, I could still think my way out. I could still dream. I had my inner life. I had my backstage life. So I could be out living in a way that I didn't get hurt overly, and I didn't get too abused overly in these abusive relationship or systems, but I still had myself. And that person was the one that kept me going until I could get out. And so I send the Off Ramp Project out as a message to people who are currently kind of crushed under the weight of hierarchies of human worth, kind of crushed under the weight of abusive relationships, ideologies, ways of eating, health, political parties, ideologies of politics or any other thing. families, workplaces, any place where you feel trapped. Yes, that feeling is real. And what else is real is the human spirit and your ability to think and dream and hope your way to the next place and to find people like in this hierarchy of human worth of patriarchy. I found all kinds of lady people and man people who are freaking awesome. And of course, all of my LGBTQIA plus friends. Yeah. Even in the darkest and most painful times, we have that poetry within ourselves. We have epic stories within ourselves. We have our dreams, we have our desires, we have our ideas of how things can be. We're not trapped. We're trapped, but we're not. It's a hierarchy of human worth, but it's not. Hierarchies are created by humans. You're a human. You get to create something better. And the reason I talk about all of the things that brought us here, all of the different pieces, hierarchies of human worth, end stage capitalism, the outrageous attention economy, all of the different cultic aspects of what we're seeing, the ways that our empathy and our emotions and our power are for sale, our attention is for sale, everything's for sale except me. I can say no. I can stop doom scrolling. But if I don't understand doom scrolling, how do I stop? If I don't understand that my empathy and my emotions and my power and my attention are for sale, how can I stop? Awareness is crucial in a time when people would very much like for you to be asleep. And hierarchies of human worth are very much a cultic mechanism. One of the ways you can tell that your group is unhealthy is if they make outsiders and if they make monsters. And in both of our reigning political parties in the United States, we're doing both, right? That's a problem with having two parties is you're always going to have, schisms. You're always going to have, well, at least I'm not a Democrat. Well, at least I'm not conservative, right? Instead of understanding that any normal functioning human being is both liberal and conservative about whatever. I'm very conservative about my bank account, right? I need to make sure that I and my family are going to survive. I am very liberal with my time, right? I am very conservative about this. I'm very liberal about that. I'm kind of in the middle about this. These two are not polar opposites. They should be working within each of us, right? But to have two parties that get all fighty for any number of reasons, we start to lose our humanity behind it. And we just become these kind of pointless ideologues. I'm a liberal. No, I'm a conservative. Who cares? I'm both. Where do I go? Where do I fit? I'll fit with both people. I can go talk to conservatives about the things I'm really conservative about and talk to liberals about the things I'm super liberal about. But I maintain my individuality and my dignity as a person. I maintain my emotions, my empathy, my attention, and my power. So in taking an off-ramp from hierarchies of human worth, it means understanding the social world more than we generally are allowed to. My training as a social scientist was primarily in sociology, which almost nobody even knows what it is. The most popular social science right now and for a long time, the one that people know, is psychology. And I don't like it very much because psychology means psyche is the self, is the study of the self. And it's very hard to study yourself. Sociology is the study of humans in social groups. Anthropology, which I also studied, is the study of human social groups as cultures, right? So you can find out brilliant things in anthropology. The anthropology of religion is mind-blowing because if you say religion is this, an anthropologist can say, well, it's not in Senegal. And it's not here and it's not there. And you're like, religion helps us understand what it is to be in the afterworld. And they're like, no, not in Malaysia, not in this, not in that. So if you want to ask questions about things that humans share, don't go to psychology. go to anthropology. And if you want to ask questions about humans and group life, don't go to psychology, go to sociology, right? So for me, the off ramp means raising our view and our vision outside of psychology. Goodbye, psychology. Now, I write for Psychology Today, so it's not like I hate them, but it's not my favorite social science, and it's not even my fourth favorite social science. But to begin to understand social behavior, to begin to understand social group behavior, to begin to understand social structure is crucial if you're going to take an off ramp, because it's not just, I hate that relationship and now I'm leaving and I'm divorcing and I'm going off. If you don't understand the structure of abusive relationships, you may fall into one again, not because you're not intelligent, but because the lack of information is making you vulnerable. So as I talk about taking an off ramp, I'm not just, let's look at those bad guys who are doing those bad things and let's leave. Go make our own world full of dreams. Is let's look at exactly what makes it bad. Let's look at exactly what makes it abusive and exactly what makes it blow up and why it is the trouble that it is. And then let's not do that. I realized today I'm I'm leading a reading group on my book, The Power of Emotions at Work, here on Empathy Academy this month. And I'm just reading through the first couple of chapters to remember it. And I wrote this in 2020. It was published in 2021. And I thought, I was talking about off ramps in the workplace even then. I was talking about the structure of the workplace and how to create a healthy, functional, human, emotionally well-regulated structure in the workplace, which is kind of unheard of. There are very few workplaces that are emotionally well-regulated and that help people do their best work. But I was talking about the problems in the workplace. And here in the United States, we have one of the worst workplace mental health structures in the known world. It is a very, very unhealthy life to be in the traditional workplace, which most men have to spend all their life there. Women sometimes have a choice. We used to have a choice. It wasn't a great choice because we didn't have any, buying power or autonomy over our own lives. But at least we didn't have to go to corporations, right? Men have had to do that to their great detriment and to their great detriment to their social and emotional health and their mental health. But the workplace has been a very, very unhealthy social structure. So this book, The Power of Emotions at Work, is like, here's how to make us a healthy one by understanding what we did wrong. Same thing with off-ramp. Let's not just point fingers and say Donald John Trump created all of this, and if we just don't have him as a president, it'll all be hunky-dory. Well, that's silly. He didn't do it. I'm holding him responsible for what he did do. Yeah. But just changing presidents doesn't change the problems. And I think that's the most important thing is when we change presidents again, she says with hope, there will still be many, many, many weaponized people on the left and the right who've been taught, who've been intentionally manipulated into hating each other's guts, into distrusting them, and even thinking of them as inhuman. That's a problem we've all got to look at, no matter who the president is, because that is a tremendous injury to the entire psyche of the United States. If we want to go forward and help this country come back to some semblance of, I was going to say worthiness or just livability, we've got to confront this. It's why I talk about braver angels. They are all about that, right? It's why I talk about ground news, which can help you understand that people on the conservative side, if they're not careful, are seeing news that has no connection to the news that people on the liberal side are seeing, and vice versa. If people on the liberal side, if they're not careful, don't have any idea what news that people on the conservative side are seeing, right? We are being fed two entirely different stories that are being fed to us for the sole purpose of other people making money about on it, right? Our media has become very monopolized. It's owned by very few people who are incredibly wealthy. They're on the top of that hierarchy of human worth, and they have reasons that include dollar signs for why it's so valuable to them to set us at each other's throats. And again, because we own our emotions, we own our empathy, we own our attention and our power, we get to pull it back, but only if we know it's happening, right? Otherwise, we're just going to do cult hopping. We're going to do political party hopping. We're going to do bad relationship hopping. We're going to do bad job hopping. If we don't understand what we're looking for, if we don't understand that this is an off ramp, not just falling off a cliff or just getting off of that road, it's an off ramp to a different kind of place where humans are not fodder for people who are willing to manipulate us and create a bunch of intentional chaos to keep us off of our feet. That's not okay. It's cute when you see it. You're like, oh, you would like me to be falling over and following you and to give my emotions to you and to give my empathy to you and do you want to eat and make money off of my attention? Well, that's adorable. It's not going to happen, but that's cute. That's cute. Now go away because I belong to myself, right? Even in the worst situations, and I've been in them, I still belong to myself. And you can too. And that's what the Off Ramp Project is about. That's what my whole freaking life is about. All my books are about this, everything. I have lived many, many lifetimes in just this one. And I have been in horrendous situations. And I decided early on, I decided at the age of 4 or 5, after a couple of years of being molested, that I would never do anything like that to anybody ever. It was absolute stubbornness. And I decided, if this is the life that God would have for us, then God, I was angry with God. And I was like, I could build a better world. I could carve a better world out of a pumpkin, you giant failure. There is what is it, a poem? I can't remember. It's from the Spanish language, but it says, your anger is a fine wine that God loves to drink. And throughout my life, God has been happily drunk off of my anger. But I decided people make excuses all the time for why they have to be terrible, why they have to be abusive, why they have to be weak. And I won't do it. I'm going to be a blessing in this world. No matter who does what to me, I'm going to do it, right? That's the kind of owning of yourself that a 4 or 5-year-old girl could do. And in the midst of pretty terrible abuse. And so I know from living it that you can not just take an off-ramp, but you can create off-ramp and world and dream and vision after vision after vision, no matter what is happening. And you can build a better life. You can create the language of emotions and, do the first ever description of emotions that's functional. You can create the 6 aspects of empathy and help people understand empathy as a 6-aspect process that you can engage in and address at any point in your life. You can build the power of emotions at work. You can build emotionally well-regulated structures in one of the worst places in the world, which is the modern workplace. You can take an off-ramp. You can. It's really important to understand how the road got going where it was going when it was going badly. It's important to understand the trouble at the center of humanity, of humankind. It's important to understand the ways that we create trouble for each other, sometimes with not even knowing that we did it, right? But it's also important to understand, like I wrote about with my colleague Janja Lalich in our book, Escaping Utopia, which is about 65 kids who were raised in cults. And they got out. You can get out. We can heal. We can make change. We can evolve. We can do it. Some people choose not to, but like, so what? That's them. Uh, we keep going. We keep going. And we become blessings in this world. And whatever privilege we have from whatever ridiculous hierarchy of human worth we got put on top of, we use that for social justice, right? We aren't powerless in this world, although the people in power, on top of those hierarchies of human worth, of money, of whiteness, of maleness, of religiosity, they would love to have us think that we have no power. Sorry, neither. Too bad. Right? We can take an off ramp. We can make an off ramp. Even if we can't right now, we can dream an off ramp. We can envision an off ramp. We can draw it. We can write poetry about it. We can sing songs about it. We can find books, fantasy books, romance books, books about science fiction that show us different lives, different ways of structuring communities and worlds. And there's so much more to the human spirit than just going to work and going to church and voting for some guy and watching TV, and listening to whatever news the wealthy people want us to believe. There's so much more. And this is a part of my deeper story. There's got to be more than this. And so we create it every day. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking a look at whatever of hierarchy of human worth you got thrown into, and challenging it, being not just a step in a dead, rigid hierarchy, but being a living soul with a living heart who can see a different way. Thank you for taking an off ramp from whatever it is that needs to be gotten off of. I'll see you next time.